Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and get started. I think we'll have some more members coming in shortly. There's several things going on, and there'll be some sort of coming and going, but rather than have y'all wait, we're going to go ahead, and what we'd like to do is just take some time today and work through a few of these departments, let them talk to us about their budget and sort of fill the committee in on what's going on, and maybe some questions and some things we want to talk about and discuss. So we're glad you're here, and first we're going to do is the Public Service Commissioner, and Commissioner Wise, we'll turn it over to you. Why don't you use a mic there? I think they want to do that, and just wherever convenient for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I am Stan Wise. I'm here filling in for Chairman Everett today, who's off on some commission boondoggle in Albany having a public hearing. So the good news and bad news is Commissioner Everett's gone, and I'm here. And I think we'll probably both go under bad news. So you get what you get. Clearly, we're under the same pressures that everybody else in state government is with its budget crunch. And I think you've got our slideshow. But clearly, our caseloads and everything that we have will cover in our proposals and what we're doing. As you can see in the government's recommended FY 2009, we're looking at $1.3 million in total reductions coming from a variety of areas within our budget. The $200,000 removed last year from the nuclear construction monitoring is a significant charge, and we'll talk about that later. Clearly, there can only be conjecture at this point about approval of the two new nuclear plants, but as we go forward, it adds a significant workload to our staff and the consultants that we're able or unable to hire as we go forward in this monitoring. And the governor's 2010 recommendation, we're looking at reductions of $862,000. He did not remove the funding for our consultants. Titled here is our SMEs, and so $380,000 is available in the fiscal year 2010 for consultants. The $200,000 for nuclear construction monitoring, and the balance of $180,000 is for all other cases in fiscal year 2010. We continue to respond to the legislature, to the governor's calls for budget cuts. And fiscal year 2009, that was almost 8%. Members of the committee, we're like a lot of other people, but in so many ways, we're a very small agency, and we've got huge statutory responsibilities that we face in what we're trying to do. And I think with an agency of just a little over 100 people, these cuts are significant. And I'll talk a little bit more about how we use a combination of our staff, of these SMEs, these consultants, and what we do. Historically, the commission has hired consultants on an as-needed basis as opposed to hiring permanent full-time employees. We use them as a general contractor. We use them as needed. They're not permanent staff. With the anticipation of nuclear power plant construction expected in the next 7 to 8 years, the commission may need to ask for more and more permanent personnel to monitor and audit the process on a day-to-day basis. It is a significant part of what we will be doing in addition to the regular workload of the Public Service Commission. We have significant challenges for funding these SMEs. We have an aging, although very qualified workforce. We, like many places in government, have folks that are approaching retirement. And so at some point, we're not going to be able to continue to keep these positions vacant as we have to net budget reductions in the past. We continue to lose some of our very professional staff as well. And so it's important that we have the ability to retain the staff, the professional staff that we have. I've said many times, the staff of the Public Services Commission is probably one of the most highly trained professional staff in state government. And it comes from training and education, and clearly the time in place monitoring the rate cases and the other issues that face us. Currently, we've got 103 staff positions, 8% of which are vacant. And again, in the 2010 recommendation, we'll have only $380,000 of the 2.1 estimated needs that we show. As I said earlier, we've got 20 staffers who have 30 years of service or more, and in 2020, and in 10 years, and in 10 will have 30 years of service in fiscal year 2010. The utility infrastructure and services are key components of Georgia's continued economic development. On the auditing and the monitoring of the nuclear expansion and the monies involved in that, committee members, we can't afford to miss. We've got to get it right the first time. We're not going to be able to come back and make excuses if we fall short of the obligations that we have, what this General Assembly has given us in statutory responsibility. We'll continue to have significant rate cases with Georgia Power, with Atlanta Gas Light, and Atmos Energy in the coming year. Our integrated resource plan continues to be a major part of what we do. What we can't judge and what we never know is the unexpected cases that we face at the Commission that pop up through investigations or some review of the prudency of the utilities that we regulate. It comes at some point, we'll choose which cases to forego if the Public Service Commission does not have sufficient funds to hire our consultants. It is a considerable concern for us at this point. We're beyond cutting any fat. Fat's gone. We're cutting muscle. We're close to nicking arteries. And it is significant that we do send money back to the Treasury, both in fines of almost $1 million in the last year, and additional fees that some of the utilities pay to process. I'll note that of our rate cases that we monitor, that the Commission can validate about $150 saved for every dollar spent on those SMEs. And this goes from what the utilities apply for and say they need, and the ultimate decision made by the Public Service Commission. I mentioned the filing reports that we have. For example, with the nuclear review, Georgia Power has notified us that they'll be filing quarterly reports to review the Vogtle expenses. This means that the Commission could be in the middle of one review while another one is being filed. The Commission needs to be able to respond quickly to these filings and conduct review within statutory deadlines that are imposed upon us. In order to protect the consumer and business interests, we must be able to verify the construction costs that are appropriate. And in keeping with that, Representative Lunsford has sponsored House Bill 52 this year, and that we continue to see some revisions to acknowledge the concerns of some of the utilities, but it is a funding mechanism, and so to answer some of your concerns, those funding mechanisms, the monies that the utilities would pay on calls or basis would go back to the state treasury. This Commission would still come in front of this body on appropriations, regardless of the monies that are returned to the Treasury by the utility. But I would encourage you to look at House Bill 52 as a form of funding for the Commission in this very tough time. The utilities recognize the need for a first-class professional commission as well. What they don't need is us doing something on a wing and a prayer with a staff, with a budget that is unable to perform the obligations that we have as a commission. So I would encourage you to consider House Bill 52 and give us any feedback that you have on the ability of the state to charge utilities the cost of preventing their side of cases before the commission. I can't stress enough the significance of what we've done and what we continue to do in answer to the governor's call and the General Assembly's call to reduce our budget in these tough economic times. I will say that I would hope, now this is personal, this is me, this is not my colleagues, I'm leaving the reservation here. We're very concerned, or I'm very concerned, about dictates of furloughs of our staff. because unfortunately, we're having more and more to do, and I would much prefer that this body give us the commitment to tell us what we have to do, what budgetary constraints we have to meet, and let the commission choose where those cuts need to come, as opposed to across the board program. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Before we get into the questions, I failed to recognize we've got some special guests in the audience, and Representative Cole, I think you wanted to introduce some folks out there.
Not to interrupt, apologize. We just had a special group of Jones County leadership, and they want to learn a little bit about government today, and we told them this would be a great committee to come to, so we're glad to have them. They're in the back of the room there. So.
Well, we're glad to have y'all. Thank you for coming. Appreciate your interest in your government.
I've done some deer hunting.
Well, Commissioner, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could, let me just go ahead and acknowledge that with me today is our Executive Director, Douglas Flanagan, and our Fiscal Officer, Terry Fitch. And if we don't get what we want, I'm going to carry as a hostage.
Yes, okay.
We're hiring them bigger and bigger that we get what we want.
Great. Representative.
Let me ask you something, I certainly agree, the pain of furloughs and laying off and that type of thing. But what you're saying is you would rather the department have the decision of whether to do furloughs or whether to lay some people off of that, rather than across the board statewide furloughs.
Yes, and clearly.
As long as you meet a certain criteria, it should be up to you.
If you tell us you owe us another 8% or 10%, let the commission decide what is the appropriate way. We have some staff that are essential to the operation of what we do, and in the coming years, it's going to get worse, not better for us.
Any other questions up here? Commissioner, I've got a couple of questions for you. Tell me, talking about the furloughs, now tell us, I think you mentioned y'all have roughly 100 people in your department, and I realize that your commissioners are constitutional officers, so, you know, that's sort of a different mix there. But what would a one-day furlough gin up in dollars? Can you give us some numbers?
30,000.
30,000.
That's why 210 would be the stuff. State health benefits percent for the rest of the year would be less for that.
That 30,000 now, does that include? You need to back the benefits out before you come up with that, because what those benefits are around 42%, I think, of your. So the 30 is net. So the 30,000 includes the benefits. Right. Okay. Rich, what are y'all doing now if you have someone who leaves as far as a vacancy? Are you filling those vacancies? Or are you leaving those open? Tell us.
In most cases, we're leaving them vacant or replacing within and leaving that position vacant. We've got a retirement coming up in the coming months, and this lady sort of really keeps the utility section all tied together. Somebody's got to fill her role, but ultimately, I don't see the commission being able to replace the person. I think that we would have to replace her position from within and leave ultimately another position vacant.
Okay. Any other questions up here? Yes, sir.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Commissioner Oxenstein is walking the halls bragging about how he's the only elected official that his own pay. How are your commissioners responding to the percentage decrease for their? Are they talking about paying their own furloughs?
If ultimately it is dictated that the staff is required to take a furlough, I can't see as a leadership role that the commissioners don't take a furlough as well. Again, if furloughs are dictated, I believe this commissioner will, and I would hope that my colleagues would as well.
I can follow up.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate y'all support on House Bill 52, and for the members that weren't in the committee last year, when we came up with that idea, this was an idea that myself, Chairman Harvin, Chairman Rogers had thought of it, and Chairman Smith, when we were sitting in the room trying to work through numbers, trying to make the budget match, and we're looking at why do we have to put in money into the budget after the fact. We look forward to doing an audit, and we at it.
And, you know, some of the negatives are clearly that people would say, well, it's just another form of a tax. But ultimately, what the state gets from us being appropriately funded is better decisions, a rate case, better monitoring, and that ultimately consumers in this state, the utilities in this state, benefit from an adequately funded commission. And I believe that that's one of the reasons we don't get any more pushback from the utilities on this very small piece of paying for what they cause for the regulation that is appropriate for investor-owned utilities in our state.
What we're trying to do is, currently, if they had to get money appropriated, it comes out of the general fund, which means every taxpayer in the state of Georgia pays into the general fund. We would take money out of the general fund, give it to them for their SMEs, you know, but it may only be a regionally affected area that we're studying, so that means that someone in Representative Tanner's district may be paying part of a rate case for somebody that's something more to it. And then there's no reason why his taxpayers should fund any of that. It should come from the ratepayers that are going to represent it from. And that was something I did on Congress. So, you know, I appreciate their support and industry support, but that's real country that they would budget process.
Good. Thank you. So we'll want to keep an eye on House Bill 52 as it moves through the process. Anybody else got any more questions up here? Rich, we thank you for coming, and your commission over there does an important job for all the citizens of the state, and we know it's important. We want to try to help you with it. And let me make just a couple more comments just in general terms. This budget that we're all looking at right now, and of course we're talking about the 09 at the moment, we'll be moving into 10-2, is not very pretty, and it's probably going to get a lot uglier before we get through. The economy doesn't seem to be bouncing back as quickly as we'd all like for it to, but we're going to work with you and do our best to help you, and I know y'all will do the same. So let's keep the dialogue going, and we'll continue to work and talk. And appreciate you coming over here and being with us today. Anything else that you want to share with us? Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, next we're going to hear from the Department of Agriculture, Commissioner Tommy Irvin. Commissioner, you're here, and introduce anybody that you have with you, and we'll be glad to hear from y'all. What you want? I believe we do, yes.
So where are you from?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, you can imagine how humiliating it is to sit on the other side of it.
At least he said it.
Live on the hot spot.
I don't think Mike's working, but I don't think we need it. Sherry, sit up here so I can see your eyes. I know you realize what every agency is going through. We're, as Stan said, we're a small agency. The total budget of 40 some odd $40 million, 41 state funds, some federal funds. We're an agency that started out, Commissioner Irvin became commissioner with about 1,100 to 1,100 employees. Over time, he has been able to do more as the legislature and the governor has given more responsibility to the department. We're now down to under 700 employees. We're holding open 152 vacancies, authorized but not funded. Our lapse factor, annual lapse factor, is approximately $4.2 million, which means during this time, thank God we had a little notice. We have since September started freezing positions. I don't think we've hired for 5 or 6 people in critical areas back to the department. We're working as hard as we can. We have our first cut was approximately 20 part-time people, which were full-time equivalent of about 10 people. We just had to lay them off in September, early October. Because we saw this coming, the governor was giving us notice. The legislature, the House and Senate Appropriations Committee Having said that, Mr. Chairman, you want to talk about 010 and 09?
Just 09, yeah.
Okay. I think, you can speak to the council a bit, we're working off of good,
Our
Tracking sheet?
Yeah,
we have those.
we got those.
But what you see on here on the cut, basically, we've gone directly into a cut mode and submitted to the governor our cuts that we could take them. I'll be glad to go through them, starting on page 17, 13.01.
I haven't.
Yeah.
Pages are numbered.
That's all right. Just use the 13.
So
We
let's
can.
just talk about administration.
Yeah.
This is a problem within itself, and we ask for your help, not in monetary help, but a help in changing. 2 years ago, when we went program-based budgeting, we were not able to change our administration. We have assistant commissioners in charge of division, actually in the administration division, and it appears that we're populating the administration. But in fact, many of the people that are field level or department program managers or division directors are shown in administration. It should actually be in program-based. Director of consumer protection is in administration. Director of plant industry is in administration division. Sheriff others are Dr. Black. Director of animal protection is in the administration. So what we'd like to ask you to consider, since we're going through the major cut, we're just trying to realign this. Sheriff Forrester can work with Tracy and House Budget Office to realign that. It would help us very good. But also, the chair, you follow down and realize that the Athens and System debt moratorium is pass-through money. We have none of it. We don't keep it. It's basically pass-through and signed for administrative purposes to the department. In consumer protection, and I'll come back to that one. If you look at marketing and promotion, this is another thing that looks like we're spending a lot of money on marketing and promotion. In fact, that includes our marketing program, our Georgia Grown promotion, our other promotions. But the biggest thing in that is our farmers market. It appears that it's all in marketing, but it is not. Farmers markets are major markets in Atlanta, Macon, Savannah, Thomasville, then our seasonal markets in Fort Hill, Glenville, Moultrie, and a couple others that we're in the process of cutting back on, all under here. Keep in mind that all this money that we get out of marketing and promotion and state funds, we return over $6 million to the general fund through rents and fees from the farmers market themselves. So what we would hope is just for title and for nothing else other than appearance, we'd like to ask you not to give us any money for that, but consider changing that to I think we call it farm products support or farm production support. It encompasses there's a little bit of advertising and the farmers market themselves. If you look at the next item is the poultry veterinary diagnostic lab. That too is pass-through money. We don't keep it. They've submitted and we've recommended the same cut, percentage cut that governor requested, and we're following up with actually only $213,000, but it's 8% cut. Mr. Chairman, we have two little things. We want to come back to simplification. This past year we were allocated because the legislature was kind enough to find the money for some of the money left in DOAS that was been allocated that to vehicle. situation we're in. DOAS is, as of today, still doesn't have a contract with the vehicle. So we can't purchase it. And for your information, Commissioner asked me last year, so we need to find a much more reasonable, economical, and durable vehicle. On the contract last year, the state contract, we wound up buying Ford Rangers, small, real small pickup, six-cylinder. We established with a four-cylinder. We did decide to go with a six-cylinder for durability and for the fact that we do have air conditioning on the transmission. We bought those for $10,000, $1,100, and $1,200. Maybe $10,600 with the V6 engine in it, and they've been very successful. And I can tell you, we are very, very, I think, good stewards of the dollar when it comes to doing it. So, Mr. Chairman, let's get on to, unless you have questions, will I go along?
Go ahead, if anybody has a question while we go, we'll do it. If not, we'll do it when you finish your presentation.
I don't want to ask a question. Mark, as you know, consumer protection seems to be a hot item. Peanut butter. I will tell you that, Mr. Chairman, that 99% or better of the peanut butter product in the state and in the country is absolutely safe, it's nutritious, and it's economic. We have a situation where one company in the state, at this point, one company in the nation, one plant in Georgia has had a problem. They have, as I said, I can't say a lot about it because we have, we're working with the Food and Drug Administration. Our folks are working with FBI, the GBI just pulled out of it because there are no state laws protecting them broken, but I will tell you that if a person intends to break the rules, to manipulate paperwork or testing, actually no amount of inspectors or police officers can prevent that. We're not sure what's going on, I will tell you that. Our Consumer Protection Division is operating with how many vacancies right now? But we are doing what you've asked us to do. It's a stretch, it's a push. We appreciate what you're going to do for us in the past. However, Commissioner announced yesterday, if we had a chance, if stimulus money or some other money is available, we would be interested in going back to something we had about 12, 14 years ago. We had a very small group of people assigned to the 1,000 plus food processing facilities that we have in the state. To actually process the inspectors that we have now cover 16,000 food stores and processing plants that we have in the state. We have about 60 of them. As you can imagine, there are Georgia's a big state, and we think we've done really well so far. But we would, if there comes any kind of urgent, we'd be able to move one or two, maybe three people from our existing staff. And if we had a chance to get 2 or 3 people, we would add a food safety specialist and a couple of other positions to do consumer protection dedicated as we once did before we had to start cutting these things. I didn't realize this department was so important when I was a member of the appropriations committee before. But as we did before, we had a group assigned to special food.
Does he have a number?
Food processing facilities. Now, we also have.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Who was in charge of appropriations after that department was cut out?
Paraphrase Ronald Reagan, I don't recall. Somebody I know, I do not recall the name. Yes, thank you. I knew you would point that out. Mr. Chairman, because of the potential, we've had also, important as pets are, we've had some issues with pet food in the past, some of it melamine, and now sometimes peanut butter. We have, I think, 4 or 5 vacancies in but we think if you get how one, if the stimulus package or you find additional members, we realize it quickly. So, having said all that, to summarize it, in consumer protection, we believe that we can take, if given the opportunity, we would love to have, I think we put 4 positions. One of those would be a food safety inspector. And 3 would be field people. We would take the other 2 people out of our existing staff and move them into this program commission officer the way that we love to have the money we have. And we would just do the best we could with that. We'll do, if we have to, we'll do with what we have. But if the money becomes available, we'll be really interested in doing it. Have 1 for lab and 1 for plant imaging. Be glad to try to answer any
Good.
questions.
Captain Smith.
Mr. Deputy Director, to refresh your memory a little bit, following up on John's question, couldn't recall that money being taken out. If you remember, I was here at that time. It was the Senate that took that money out.
Always, right? I wouldn't say that in the book. I'm telling you right.
We strongly object, we never could get them to put that money back in.
Bullshit.
Good to have you back there on the hill, and appreciate your long-time service. I had a question about the foreign offices. I know that years ago, this committee recommended, and Commissioner Irwin followed up on it, in the Department of Industry and Trade at that time, now Economic Development, started a policy of promoting our Georgia products, working together to promote Georgia products overseas, and I assume that process is still going on.
Mr. Chairman, I would tell you, I'm glad you brought that up. Somewhere we believe that OTD may have recommended that we take our office, calling an office in Brussels is somewhat of a misleading. We have 1 person in Brussels, a contract person, a lady who's been with this commission about 20 years, on contract, not like some of our, we say our richer brothers and sisters in the economic development. We have 20, 30 officers worldwide. We have 1 in Brussels. We're using an existing person with some specialty crop money to help pay expenses on a part-time basis working in China market. I'll tell you about that in that thing. Our Brussels office serves all of Europe, India, Northern Africa, and she's not what you would call a technical, she's not an economic development. Her mission is not to create jobs or bring jobs home. Her mission is to serve Georgia agriculture, commodities, and Georgia food products. Her total annual mission the whole year is to attend food shows throughout the Europe, Northern Africa, Saudi Arabia, Middle Eastern countries, and India. She goes every week, sometimes twice a week, to a food show. And we have participated with different information. Michael, do you want to set that up? Okay. I'll be glad to speak, give that to the community in written form. And she's gone all over the Middle East, and as I said, representing us selling food products and agriculture.
Let me interrupt. She comes back to say twice a year. She will be here during this session. You would, at the time, because years ago, I think she took a good presentation between what she does.
Good.
And Georgia products.
We'll be glad to try to do that.
Know that.
Yeah.
But we're very pleased with what she does.
The only help she has, during the summer, we're lucky enough to get an intern from the University of Georgia, either their business school or international trade or some other related person. We help her during the summer. Now, our person who is in China, a young man from Georgia who speaks Mandarin Chinese fluently, lived in China for a year, his father retired from the state government. We were able to use special crop money that Senator Chairman, Senator Allen, and House members got for all the states. We things to get through exporting things to China, to the China market, is inspection service. And he's working very hard to be involved in the inspection service. And then attending food shows in China. There is a food, you can imagine, there is a food show in China every week of the year, except for 1 or 2 weeks out of the year. So, and he's doing it. In 2006, he exported 20,000 tons of pecan. In 2007, we exported over 40 million tons, or 40 million pounds, 20 million pounds, 40 million pounds of pecans out of Georgia to help stabilize the price. They export into it now. It was good for the China market, was a good market for us.
Mr. Colby, can I ask, what goes on at a food show, seriously?
Food show? People from supermarkets, for instance, the Chinese market, Walmart's in the Chinese market, Carrefour, the Chinese company, Carrefour, the European general merchandise food stores, and then the Chinese, well, you use that market. If they have a show, we've taken people from Georgia, which I bring back to the center. Everything from energy drinks, made in Georgia, to sauces, to nuts, pecans, blueberries. We'll be attending a show in March to show Georgia wine. The Chinese have a taste for a sweeter wine, muscadine wine. We have 17 wineries in Georgia now. Muscadine wine is a sweeter wine that we believe will give us some indication that winery, what is it down in
In Arlington, yeah.
Well,
I forget, Still Pond.
Still Pond, which, Meinhardt over in
Bullet.
Statesboro, and
You know
others
that
are
blood.
doing
I
a
know
really
that's
good
what-
job with muscadine.
They're telling the Chinese, why the underwear makes out the rest tight.
No response, okay. Let me ask you one other question. Will there be a peanut butter and jelly day at the Capitol this year?
We talked with them yesterday. I thought with
I hope they do.
They are scared, as you can imagine, having gone through this. It's certainly not an isolated incident, but it is a very unfortunate incident that affected 8 people's lives and 4 or 5 hundred people with some form of illness from that.
But it's been peanut paste, not peanut butter.
It is peanut paste. I can give you, I'm not a technician, but I can give you a layperson vision on that. It's extremely hard to detect because of the consistency of peanut butter. A salmonella microbe or bacteria associated with it or harmful bacteria, it's not like it would be in a drink or some other product like the mixed this paste. You could test a 50-pound barrel of peanut butter 50 times and never hit the hot pocket, as I'm told by our folks, Austin Harrison, our assistant commissioner for consumer protection. It never touch it. What happened is it was sold and sent to Austin, Capitol, and others, and then it got mixed in a mixer and spread throughout, and it contaminated a lot of their products.
But like,
That's a layperson.
right, but like Peter Pan and Jif, they make their own.
Skippy, you name it, we've not found.
They make their own, so to
He
speak.
is a name brand product.
Any other questions, anybody from the committee?
I get frustrated with that.
Chairman, we're going to now say one more.
Yes, sir.
We have had to take furlough days. We've had 2 furlough days so far. We took the day before Thanksgiving. We took the day after New Year's Day, the whole department took it. We scheduled, commissioner scheduled 1 more day in February, the last week of February. Sometime during the last 2 weeks of February, giving employees an option to choose what day. The furlough saves us, unfortunately, saves us, I think it's $25 per day. And that's what we've had to do to meet the budget cut. So we're leaving the vacancies open without trying not to leave open critical positions. That's the only way we can make the 8%.
Is that everyone or so above a certain pay grade?
I want to commend you for all the departments that we're going to be looking at and working with. Department of Agriculture is the only one who has instituted a furlough policy so far. None of the others have, to my knowledge. And I want to commend you for being proactive and taking that action early, because I think that has helped you. I want to ask you a question, if you would. Could you comment just a little bit on our agritourism that we did last year? You know,
I'm really happy. Glad you mentioned that. We just yesterday had the ag census roll out. This is the USDA partners with us doing ag census for 2007. Agritourism in Georgia was a $24 million benefit to the state last year, thanks to what the legislature did, you, Mr. Chairman, in particular, because of your interest in economic development. We have done our rules and regs for registering ag tourism sites. We're partners with DOT and economic development, Bruce Williams and his folks in tourism, and Ken Stewart. They are in the process of designing tourism, so in-house a logo that we'll use for the sign for ag tourism sites. We have I think 3 different levels. We have a temporary registration site for people who only have like a 2-week
turn your mic and speak into it. They said they can't hear us, too.
Okay, thank you. We have 3 levels of registration, and one is a temporary, one is a one-time, which is 2 weeks or less to take care of fairs and other things. A temporary, which is up to 6 months, I believe, where people have summer garden events or summer fruit and vegetable deal, or something like pumpkin patch, corn maze, and things like that. And then we have a year-round registration thing. So we think it's going well. The rules and regs, we've had the hearing on them, had no opposition to them, had some recommendations for a few minor changes, and are ready for this season, we hope, as soon as economic development designs a sign.
Thank you. And I have one other comment I want to ask you about, and ask you to make a comment on, is your Georgia Grown program. I attended the meeting that you had out at the farmers market back several months ago, and to me, y'all done a good job with that by promoting the Georgia products that are grown here in Georgia, and it's sort of a value added for our farmers or people that produce this. They end up getting a lot more out of it in the end than just selling it the raw product and letting it go somewhere else and be produced.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for asking that question. We started, Commissioner said we got to do something about trying to get our Georgia products out there, and I worked with our marketing department and our trade division. We came up with the idea of Georgia Grown Food Show. We've had for the last 2 years at the farmers market this Georgia Grown Food Show, invited people from all over Georgia, everything from fresh Georgia shrimp to catfish, fish products to wine, to fruits, vegetables, you name it, grass-fed beef, pork, sausage from all over the state, and had between 80 and 90 displays. We've had between 200 and 300 Georgia chefs, restaurant owners, restaurant managers, school food service people, dietitians, hospital and other dietitians to attend, and it's been a tremendous event. We hope to continue doing it, assuming we can continue to get the specialty crop money that we've been able to use to pay for part of that.
Thank you. They're doing a good job with it. Anybody else got any questions? Yes, sir.
On furloughs, when you got a situation where an employee is maybe 50% funded
Yes, sir. No exceptions. One exception. In the poultry area, if they're running a plant, we continue. If they request that we not lay somebody off, that's the one exception. They pay for that, and we match it, I think, 100%. So we allow them that exception so that we don't mess up production.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I had received an email, I wish I could remember, I can't remember exactly what this job was. It was related to the Department of Agriculture. He was making a case that in order for him to be laid off, in order for him to be,
That's a sign.
I won't comment. In order for him to be laid off, somebody would have to be brought out of state to do his inspection job, which apparently was a daily situation. And he was making the case that the state would have to pay expenses. It would actually cost to furlough him. And the question is, in those situations, are you aware of situations like that? And in those situations, are we?
Everyone that we've been made aware of, we've made the exception for. So we have a view.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
do have a few like that. That's right.
But if you hear if you get back and find it, or you get direct knowledge of it, let us know. We'll want to make sure. The last thing we want to do is stop businesses from selling products, safe, clean, profitable products.
Perhaps you have to turn the mic on and speak right into that. They tell me they can't hear up on top.
Thank you. Just one quick question about the cutting the contract on the Clean Day program. Does that cut the program out altogether?
It cuts the program out for this year. It's approximately $138,000, if I remember. This is to describe that for you. This is a kind of like an opportunity for forgiveness if you want to bring old chemicals in, farm chemicals, or even other chemicals in, that we would take them in, properly dispose of them for people. You know, having harmful chemicals that you didn't use, that you're not sure still are maybe useful or effective, maybe sitting around in your garage or in a storage facility. And it's been very successful. Unfortunately, we had to cut somewhere, and this is one we were hoping we could get by 1 year without it. But we'd love to do it if we had the money.
Oh, okay. I just
Yes,
want to
ma'am.
ask about. And one other thing, I know you're tired of talking about the trouble down in Blakely, and so much you hear that's not true. Was anything in that plant brought in from out of the state, out of another country? Was any of the paste brought in from China or anywhere else?
We're in a terrible situation in that now we have State Department of Agriculture investigators that have been working with FDA, both their regular food inspectors and their criminal investigators. The FBI has been brought in to see if there were federal charges. The GBI, the commissioner asked the GBI to look at it, see if any state charges were, if any state laws have been broken. This morning, last night, Vernon Keenan contacted the commissioner and advised him that the best they could determine there were no state laws broken. But because we're talking about the possibility of shipments into the plant from out of state and from out of the country, and the possibility that it was exported out of the country and certainly within the country, that we just are trying our best not to say too much to get us in trouble, but
Thank you.
the possibility's there.
President Smith.
Oh, right now, on January the 9th, we shut the plant down. It's been, plant was shut down. We also put a withhold from sale on every product in storage or in shipment from that plant. We are in the process now of going through the administrative process of removing their license. It takes 30 days to do that. Papers have been filed, and we're in the process of doing it. There's one problem with doing that on our part. If we remove their license, and one of the reasons we've not been able to get the kind of information we need is that they're not required by law to give us any information on testing. But the minute we shut them down, we remove their license, we have no power over them. So we gauge that to be synchronized or work in conjunction with FDA's inspection, and they're possible, not probable, not saying anything about it, but the possibility of any criminal charges.
Maybe if you find.
But we would, if we find them at fault, the commissioner has to have a hearing. If they are found at fault, then a maximum fine or maximum appropriate fine would be levied.
Well, I was just more concerned about things brought in from a foreign country into here,
And you may be
that's
right.
where it was coming from. Thank you. It's really not Georgia peanuts.
Thank you. I'm told that we need to turn these mics on only when we speak, and that's the reason we're getting the feedback. So if you're not speaking, make sure yours is turned off, and we'll just turn them on one at a time. Representative Smith.
As you know, the peanut farmers did nothing wrong. It wasn't anything. The peanut is nothing wrong with what the farmers did, but they are the ones that's going to be really hurt by this, because if we don't get the word out, a lot of folks are going to go in the store and they'll err on the side of caution, and where they might have bought a jar of peanut butter, they'll say, well, it's probably okay, but maybe it's not, and they won't buy it. Do you know what is being done by the federal government to get the word out about you mentioned earlier that above 99%, above 99.9% is probably okay. Do you know what's being done by the federal government nationwide and worldwide by the federal agricultural people to help consumers know which peanut products are okay and which ones are not?
Mr. Chairman, the first response to something like this is, well, we need to make sure the industry's getting a fair shake. We want to make sure that people know it's safe. But in fact, we have encouraged a little bit of patience and a little bit of methodology to this, and to make sure that we're doing it right. And I think after the FDA, FBI, and others conclude their investigation, every resource that we can bring to bear and every resource that the Peanut Commission, the USDA, will be put forward to try to do that. But at this time, we think it'd be inappropriate and probably premature.
Okay, well, I just have a concern down the line that our farmers are going to go out of business. We're going to have to go to China.
No, don't get itchy. They haven't planted yet, and so we're hoping in sometime in the next couple of weeks this will.
It's nothing that we can do on a state level. I mean, we make a little difference here in Georgia, but it's going to. The peanuts are bought worldwide, as you know, and nationwide, and all over North America. And they come from, a lot of them come from southwest Georgia, some in southeast Georgia, and it's just vital that that our federal department get this word out to the world and to consumers all around the world, so that there is a market for our Georgia peanuts.
Well, I think Commissioner could tell me. I think we're still the second or third largest producer in the country, and it's a huge cash crop for Georgians, and we're going to do everything we can at the right moment.
Right. I know you already are,
yeah.
And I commend you for what you're doing. I just wanted to encourage you in that direction, and I know you're going to do all you can to promote the Georgia peanut product because of its vital economic impact on the state. Thank you for what you're doing.
Any other questions? Well, Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Deputy Commissioner, we appreciate y'all coming over and talking to us about the budget and bringing us up to speed on some of these other issues, and we'll be talking with you as we work through the budget. Thank you for coming.
Mr. Coleman, I'll eat the second peanut butter jelly sandwich. You eat the first. I think it's
Good job.
Okay, next we're going to hear from the Georgia Forestry Commission. Thank you. Y'all had a busy day today, haven't you?
Yes, sir, we have.
Well, thank you for coming and sharing some time with us. And why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself to the group and just let us hear from you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee. I appreciate the opportunity to present our budget proposals to you. And it appears, rather than going line item by line item, the previous agencies have provided an overview. And if that works for you, I'll follow that same format.
That'll be fine. You go ahead, and if there are questions, we'll take.
To start with, I want to say that the Forestry Commission takes great pride in providing our customers the most cost-effective and efficient services and giving our taxpayers and customers the biggest bang for their buck. If you look back at our budget history, you'll see that we've had to. Our current budget reductions equate out to a 14.5% budget cut, which means in nominal dollars that we'll be operating with $3.7 million less than we had a decade ago. To make that number more real in terms of real dollars, if you apply an inflation rate of 2% over the past decade to those dollars, then we'll be actually operating with $13 million less than we did a decade ago, while we're doing more than we did a decade ago. That equates out to 28% fewer dollars than a decade. And I say all that to point out the fact that over a long time here, the Forestry Commission has been taking steps to improve our efficiencies and operations and, again, being good stewards of the state's tax dollars. To provide a little overview in total of the reductions, our plan proposes eliminating state funding for 16 positions. Those positions range anywhere from a forest inventory analysis to marketing to sustainable community forest, education forest, our rural fire defense program, our air operations, our training, fire prevention, detection, suppression, and investigation positions. The next highest cut would be eliminating funds within our motor vehicle and equipment fleets as far as replacement schedules go. Our replacement schedules for our firefighting crawler tractors are 20 years, and same on our transports, and then on our vehicles, 175,000 miles. With the cuts of $824,000 to those replacement schedule dollars, that will place the Forestry Commission in a position of being $12.1 million behind to bring our firefighting equipment up to those replacement schedules. So we'll have a pretty significant impact on our firefighting equipment in a situation where we're already pretty deep in the hole. The next highest cut that you'll see scattered throughout the FY09 proposal is reducing our regular operating funds. All told, we're looking at reducing the regular operating by $875,000. And we initiated all of these reductions quite a few months ago, back last year, so that we could get out from behind the eight ball, hopefully, looking at what was coming down the road. And we're meeting those reductions by a number of means. We've got a 15% reduction in all fuel, gas, and diesel use across the agency. We're flying fewer air detection flights with our aircraft. We've initiated a 15% reduction in our energy consumption through electricity. Over the past year, we're using 63% fewer gallons of water than we did over the previous year. We've cut our educational programs for schools. We've got Stand Down Fridays initiated, where our folks do office work and repairs on equipment on Fridays rather than going out to provide services. We've eliminated all of our roadside signs across the state so that we don't have to mow the grass behind and around those. We've reduced our uniform allotments for our employees, and we are not participating in any parades, pageants, educational activities that we have in the past. And we have parked our forestry mobile classroom that we've been taking out to 5th grade classes across the state. Additional cut is we're proposing to increase our revenues through service delivery. Virtually, absolutely every service that we provide to our customers out there, we have gone back again last year and increased the service delivery charges. We've heard a lot from our customers on that, but we've got our charges more in line with what the private world charges now. For example, on our pre-suppression fire breaks, we've increased the rates from $80 and $90 per hour up to $100 and $110 per hour, depending on whether it's with a fire plow or harrow. We're charging people more for suppressing illegally set fires. We're charging our neighboring states more when we send help, as our neighboring states sent help to us in 2007. We're charging more for instant business management team to assist on projects. We've increased our seedling costs, increased our burning assistance charges. Again, virtually every service delivery that we provide, we've increased our service delivery cost on. We are shutting 4 offices down. We've shut 3 of the 4 now and are in the process of disposing those. That's in Sly County, Quitman County, Peach County, and Richmond County. And what we've done with the personnel and equipment from those sites is combined with some other units, and in one case eliminated crawler and a position there. Of greatest concern to me with the budget here is this budget proposal eliminates absolutely all state funding for our reforestation program. This includes all state funding for our nursery operations, our seed orchard operation, our tree improvement operations. Currently, the state is investing $0 into our nursery program. And actually, currently, the expectation from the state is that our nursery earned $55,000 in profit that can be turned back over into other program areas. In the FY10 budget, the proposal is to negatively fund our reforestation program farther by an existing $178,000 and then cut an additional $123,000. At the end of the day, what that says, and it's rather convoluted from an accounting standpoint, but at the end of the day, what that says is our nursery operation is expected to earn over $300,000 in profit to go back into state programs. And I just have to say that we cannot do that. Our nursery cannot earn $300,000 in profit based on current reforestation rates across the state. In a nutshell, we're looking at zero investment in reforestation in a state where the forest industry contributes over $28.5 billion to the state's economy, employs over 141,000 people, and ponies up over $580 million into the state's tax coffers every year. And with this budget proposal, we are not making any investment in ensuring that we maintain our forest lands, reforest our forest lands, or improve our tree genetics. Another pretty interesting figure with the work we've done in our tree improvement program, very conservatively estimating that through that work, our landowners are seeing 23% increase in wood volume coming off the tracts they harvest. That adds up to over $5 million going to the landowner's pocket pockets each year, and again benefiting the state from an environmental standpoint. So in a nutshell, sir, that's an overview of the total reductions adding up to 14.5%.
Okay. Any questions from any of the committee members? Okay. President Smith? Yeah. Flip it on top.
Thank you, Commissioner. You talked about you've already gone from $80 to $90 an hour to $100 to $110 an hour. And
Yes, sir.
That's on your fire breaks, when you're cutting your fire breaks.
On pre-suppression fire breaks, where we'll put those fire breaks in to assist landowners with prescribed burning forest lands.
When did y'all make that move from, is it in 08?
Yes, sir. It was probably, I don't know exactly, 5-6 months ago.
Have you noticed a reduction in calls to do that because of that move in price? Or have you pretty much kept the same amount of work out there?
No, sir. We have seen a reduction in requests. Typically, we plow right around 40,000 miles of fire breaks each year in Georgia. Pretty significant number, 40,000, almost twice around the world with our crawler tractors and fire breaks each year. We have seen the request decline. When we worked up the projection of increased revenues this year for $435,000, we saw where the economy was. We knew moving prices up, we'd lose some customers there. And then with the economy where it is, in and of itself, there'll be landowners that are going to hold off on performing work. Year to date, we have seen greater revenues than we did last year to date, but we're not at that 15% increased revenues yet.
Okay. Thank you.
President Mills?
Mr. Commissioner, at one point discussing, I believe it's the seedling sales.
Yes, sir.
Do we sell a type of seedling that nobody else sells? Private industry has moved out of the state.
Well, there are several things that we do. The one thing that the state serves as a backup to cover demand. We sell to about 6,000 customers each year in the state, and those customers are primarily the smaller landowners, the 20-acre, 50-acre farms that regenerate. And more directly to your question, we do several species that aren't readily available out there. A good example is bicolor Lespedeza that a lot of people plant for quail. That is a non-native invasive species. We used to sell that out of our nursery. 2 years ago, we stopped selling that and have started planting in our nurseries native Lespedeza, hairy Lespedeza, that I'm not aware of that being available anywhere else. Another big interest in our tree improvement program beyond normally commercially valuable species, there are plantings of longleaf. Georgia leads the nation in restoring longleaf ecosystem acres with close to 300,000 acres over the past 10 years. There's a coastal variety and a mountain variety, a montane variety, which we are establishing a montane variety longleaf seed orchard that with no funding will go away. Another quick example is 2 years ago we had an outbreak of pitch canker disease in South Georgia, killed a lot of slash pine. Through our nursery operations, we were able to develop in a quick time, in a year and a half time there, a pitch canker resistant slash that we could get out and is on the market this year. I don't believe your private nurseries would be able to respond in that manner.
Well, I think I wish I knew a little bit more of the specifics that we were told. I don't recall, but that it was a particular tree or plant that was being sold by the state that everyone in the private industry had moved out, and the state was selling it for about half the price, I believe, of what you could buy it for on the market. and we were told that it was an even wash, that that the department was not making any money on it, not losing any money on it.
I'm sorry, but I'm not familiar with the species. Dan, do you perchance?
Let me ask Sarah, if it just over.
Yes, from the standpoint of our entire nursery operations, we've been operating in that mode for quite a few years here, where our nursery is expected to operate off of receipts to where it is a wash, where seedling sales cover nursery operation cost.
And was it a wash last year, and is it a wash this year, I guess?
It will not be this year. We're looking at approximately $1 million in sales. Our projected revenues are $1.3 million in sales, and with declining reforestation efforts in the state, we will not hit our projected revenues this year even, let alone for FY10.
Well, and I was just curious, if you're selling some of those seeds that people can't get anywhere else, and we were selling them at a reduced rate, I know this was the topic of the discussion, it seemed like there may be some room to help bring some revenue in there to help make it an even wash.
Well, I would like to find out particularly or specifically what you're talking about selling at a reduced rate, because I'm not familiar with either seed or seedling sales being handled at a reduced rate or half the cost of what the private industry is.
What service that y'all offer isn't offered by any other private, is that correct? Like, it's just, what y'all do is you, I think Dan was saying something to do with the delivery, possibly, but it's not.
How about if we put it like this? What does the private sector sell their seedlings for compared to what y'all sell your seedlings for?
They are comparably priced.
Okay, so you're at the same price, pretty much competitive.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
As I mentioned, we have we've adjusted our seedling cost every year for the past, all the years I can remember here, increasing seedling cost, and they're very close to what the private market is.
And when you do sell, the cost that you sell for is covering the cost that it costs you to raise that seedling and produce that seedling and sell it.
That is what our goal and objective is, yes, sir.
And you have and you've met that goal.
In years past,
right.
But this year we will not, and last year we did not, and with reductions proposed, we will not reach that next year. And I just have realized, I think what you may be referring to is possibly longleaf seedlings. Our longleaf seedlings out of our nursery operations are bare root seedlings. The private nurseries primarily are growing containerized longleaf seedlings.
Right.
And yes, the cost of containerized longleaf seedlings are close to double what our bare root seedlings are from the private nurseries.
As I understand it, part of the reason why you have this seedling program and the longleaf trying to get it economically to the tree farmers is it's really a cheap way to promote green space throughout the state, and that's what we're trying to do. Have passed several laws trying to get more green space, and the more available we can encourage farmers to plant trees, then the more green space we have, then of course it helps with soil conservation as well. But my question was, at one time there was a program, and I think it was primarily federal in nature, but I'm sure y'all are involved with it, that farmers could get paid so much per acre if they set out trees on cultivated land. But is that program still operating? And do you know how if a farmer wants to go participate in it, what does he or she need to do?
Yes, sir. That I believe you're probably referring to the Conservation Reserve Program.
Could be. I wasn't sure of the name of it.
Erodible ag lands out of production for environmental benefits, protecting water quality. That program is still in place, and as a matter of fact, Georgia leads the nation in the number of acres of trees planted under Conservation Reserve Program. We planted over 1 million acres of trees in Georgia under that program. The focus on that program now, rather than timber production and soil conservation, is still there, but the focus has gone towards wildlife and restoring longleaf ecosystems. And again, as I mentioned, Georgia leads the nation in longleaf planting as well. And there's a continuous sign up through the is that FSA or NRCS? Through a Natural Resource Conservation Service office. So
they would contact their local office if they wanted to participate in that program?
Yes, sir.
Okay, one last question. There was a lot of profit at one time in cutting trees and selling trees, but I know it has dropped off in the last year due to Canadian imports and other things. What is the current sales? How does it stack up compared to past, what the farmers previously got, and what do you see for the next 10 years, the projection to be as far as profit in the tree farming industry?
Well, you're dead on as far as reforestation rates relative to profits in growing timber. And I will get this graph to you that looks back through the 50s. And there's a direct correlation between stumpage prices, the dollars that a landowner gets per board foot or per cord for his timber, and the amount of reforestation that occurs in the state. When stumpage prices are high, a year and 2 years following, you'll see reforested acres increase directly in correlation to that. As far as the values and profitability in the future, that's something that we're working extremely hard with, not only in supporting our traditional forestry markets, but trying to develop and take advantage of new and emerging markets. For example, bioenergy markets. This past year, we've seen 15 announcements in the state of bioenergy plants, everything from fuel pellets to biomass to electricity, biomass to ethanol. And if all of those plants do actually come online, we're looking at consumption of 8.8 million green tons of wood per year. So that's where we're working towards to develop those markets, and also in the carbon sequestration arena to try and maintain the economic viability of the landowner to own forest land and to manage it. So we are looking at if we can get all those pieces in place, demand for seedlings will increase. And we really don't know what the future may hold. There may be, coming out of our seed orchards or tree improvement program, a particular species of tree or characteristics or a family of tree that converts, for example, to ethanol better than your run-of-the-mill species or natural grown. So that's yet another reason that we need to maintain our tree improvement program.
I support, of course, the forestry program and green space. All that's important to our state. Now, my line of questions are simply coming from that we've been charged with the task of being prudent with this budget, and frankly, maybe this is an overassumption on my part, but every department that comes in here, I think, should be assuming that we're going to be forced to make some cuts somewhere. Not because we want to, but because we have to. And with that in mind, again, I'm not speaking on behalf of the committee here, but just myself, I'd just soon know what the department's preferences are in hopes that we could work with those preferences, as opposed to us shooting in the dark here and thinking what we think might be best to cut. I know that's the time. I'm not isolating you out. I know there are others here. I just letting you know what at least is going through my mind. And when we talk about like a program that is, the seedling program has been a wash in the past, and everybody's affected. The economy's affected everybody. I would be shocked if it didn't affect the seedling program. But my question is, how much would you anticipate that the state would have to pay or put into that program to make it functional?
For our entire reforestation program, again, looking for a wash from our nurseries, operating off of receipts, and to retain our tree improvement program, our entire reforestation program, we're looking at projections of $331,000. That's, I think what probably none of you are aware of is that we have been operating under a negative funding in that program for the past several years of $178,000. So back in the years when we were producing a lot of seedlings and we had those record sales, when we regenerated 600,000 acres in a year's time, we were able to produce that 178 and put it back into the state programs, but we're just not at that level now. The volume doesn't exist.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. You mentioned each of the trucks, talking about the big trucks, 175,000 miles is usually what y'all try to trade them in or buy new trucks. Is that a true statement?
Where we replace our those are the smaller motor vehicles.
Right.
Type 6 engines, F-250, 350, 450s. On the tractor and transports,
right.
We attempt to replace at 15 years on those models.
On those, okay. Don't really necessarily go by mileage, just go by years.
Yeah, yes, sir, years. And I should mention a couple of other things that we're looking at in that arena to try and make our dollars go as far as possible. Is we have rebuilt older model reliable crawler tractors. We have plans to do that again rather than replace and find those old reliable models, and let's rebuild those, see if we can get some more mileage out of them. And then also we are looking at going on the private market. There are a lot of truck tractors on the market out there right now with the economy the way it is, and we're looking to see if we can buy some used truck tractors rather than new.
Right. Kind of having a little experience in that in years past. For 34 years, we usually try to go about 250,000 miles on the small trucks, and I've gone 400,000 miles on the big trucks, that are in the woods a lot, because that's a different terrain than out on the road. So I guess just trying to stretch it. How about the equipment itself? Have you ever looked into, or will people even talk about rental or lease purchase or any type program with whatever equipment company you deal with, like Medtrack or Yancey Brothers or Caterpillar, John Deere?
Yes, sir. We have looked at that from our truck tractor standpoint and from our crawler, the bulldozer standpoint, and have done some studies on that several times over the past decade that I'm aware of. Mm-hmm. And each of those have come back that leasing is not as economical as purchasing.
Okay. I just knew the climate's different out there now, so I didn't know if, there might be a different end result when you talk to those people. But thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let me ask you just one quick question. I don't want to hold you too much longer. We're a little behind here, but talk to us a little bit about some sort of accounts receivable, you might say, that where we have used some of our firefighters in neighboring states or other places, and some of that you've been reimbursed for, but some of it maybe is not quite up to where it ought to be, right?
That's correct, sir. In the fire season of 2007, we basically spent double our budget, some $80 million in fire control activities. We brought 3,300 firefighters in from 44 states across the nation to assist us in that time of need, and ran up quite a tab and we are still in the process of seeking reimbursement through federal grants, federal fire grants. And Dan, I'm going to have to get you to help me with the numbers here, but we still are looking for reimbursement from the FMAGs back from 2007. I believe our total amount between the fires in 2007, the assistance that we provided on the hurricane to Texas, and the fires we've assisted on in Texas are right around $2.6 million that we're looking to try and procure in revenues this year.
Any other questions? Anybody? Thank you. Appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you.
Okay, our last department we're going to hear from is Commissioner Mike Beatty with Community Affairs. Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Good to see y'all. What I'd like to do is really kind of share with you a couple of thoughts, and then we can get into some details. And I heard a great philosopher say one time about life: you're either in a storm, coming out of a storm, or going in a storm. And I know that we're in a storm. And I appreciate all that y'all do to help us figure this out. And I really felt like we had a really productive process so far as we come to these figures. And I guess, as you look at 2009, you're going to see a 31% reduction in our agency. And that, we can make that work, and we may have to look at further reductions. But and I'm going to share with you on page, I think it says page 20 of 80-15-13, which is State Economic Development Program. And what I'd like to do is kind of share with you, because that's where the bulk, I guess, John, of the cut, a lot of the cut comes from. I think outside of that it's roughly, 11, 14%, something like that. But looking at what we do and have an opportunity to work with all of y'all at different times, y'all know we partner with cities and counties, and we strive to help them create climates of success, climate of success for their businesses and families. And honestly, a lot of what we do is we go in and we provide what we call soft seconds to help homeowners and businesses expand. And I think that's really key in today's market, because you want lenders to have to get involved and get engaged and have a sense of comfort. Now, a lot of this, as y'all know, is federal dollars, and we just went through the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, which was $150 million roughly, that we had a process in place, and we're expecting that probably, depending on how this current stimulus package, weighs out, there will be other opportunities to utilize those federal dollars. In a moment, I'm going to ask John to pass out kind of where our funding actually comes from, because we have a lot of federal funding, we have other funding sources I want to share with you. And one of the things we're doing right now, we're going to be moving into every area of the state, doing some economic summits to really point out to small business owners. If you really look at a recovery coming out of a storm, and Mr. Chairman, you know this, it's going to come from small business. So we're going to actually go out and engage real people, lenders, small business owners, potential homeowners. We have a down payment assistance program that we're expanding and trying to really work in different areas to help move some of that market. And get real people engaged and let them know exactly what we have to offer. A lot of this coming from D.C., certainly a lot of it coming from you all here and your wisdom. So understand that's what we're doing. We think that's the opportunity, Mr. Chairman, is to really move forward and work through this and come out in great shape. Now, the two areas that I want to share with you, and we'll look at some other things on the state economic development, because if we're going to come out of this storm, I think y'all would agree with me, we've got to have job creation. So one is and I think obviously was needful, we eliminated the funds for the Life Sciences Facilities Fund, which I think right now economic development has $11 million potential need to encourage new businesses to come here or to expand. And because our folks have really done a great job, and it's a repayment program, we've got $10 million in reserves, and we're going to use those reserves, Mr. Chairman, to help that program move along. And we're going to be good stewards of that money. Also, one of the best things we do is the Downtown Revolving Loan Fund, because you really think about it, your downtown areas are such the heartbeat of a lot of communities, particularly rural communities. And we have $1 million roughly. Jim, you can help me with that. I think it's about $1 million in reserve in that fund. And so we've eliminated all of that, but we're going to figure it out. We are, and we're going to continue those programs. We have good projects out there. We're going to really move out through the state to encourage small businesses and homeowners to get back engaged. But those are the two major things that that probably put that 31%. And we know that potentially there's some other things that we would need to do. And mentioned to you, we've got a couple of revenue streams, bond allocations. That's our revenue, industrial revenue bonds, and also mortgage revenue bonds. And what is our total bond cap on that? Is it 900 million, 800 million? Of course, that's 50% off. We derive some funds from that to fund positions. Therefore we don't have to use state dollars. But that's 50% off. So we got to figure that out. That's another area that we got to work on, and we are by certainly streamlining. The other thing is the industrial building fees that help us fund positions. That's about 50% off. So we've got great opportunities in those areas. We do feel like there will be some probably more federal dollars that will flow through the state, some of which will flow from HUD through us for housing, maybe infrastructure, maybe, Chris, through GFA. I hadn't looked at the whole thing, but we want to be sure that we have the folks that we need to make those programs work. I mean, you've got to have it right. There's accountability. And if you're going to take those kinds of dollars, even the 150, you think 150 million doesn't sound like a lot of dollars anymore because we're talking about trillions. But you funnel $150 million to the neighborhood stabilization program, then you got to have the process down. You got to hold people accountable and make sure it does what it's supposed to do. And outside of that, as y'all look through there, you'll see the basic types of things that everybody's talked about. You'll see where we've reduced funds. We're continuing to look at the different functions that we do. We work with, cities of 200 to the city of Atlanta. So we have different functions when you look at local government assistance. And one of the things that we're working with is with our revamped RDCs or regional commissions, and we're going to be shifting some of those functions regionally over the next couple of years as we get those entities where they need to be and have more of a regional approach. Mr. Chairman, as you know, we've worked really hard on that. So we're streamlining as much as we can. We're also preparing right now. We realize that the revenues may drop even more here in the next couple of months. So we've got some other things that we're looking at and other ways that we can weather the storm. But in weathering the storm, we want to be sure that we stay true to our mission, which is to help local communities create that climate of success so that you can have small business growth, so that you can have first-time homeowners moving into some of these homes that are available right now, so we can get some of that glut off the market and create a stimulus. So I'll be open to any questions, Mr. Chairman, that y'all would have.
Committee members, Reverend Smith.
On the, last year, I believe it was, the year before, whenever we had the bill up that combined RDCs around the state, gave incentives, we promised them money, extra funds as incentives for moving in that direction. Is that money still in the budget?
That's in the 2010 budget, which...
so as far as you know, that's still intact,
and
we're still okay on that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I want to say that in doing that was a promise we made for
right.
them, and they are all coming together and combining. And what we're working with is as we move more of those functions to the regions, then we will slim down what we do. We've identified, I don't know, Jim, maybe 12 to 15 positions at DCA that once those functions are there that we could do regionally. We feel like there's probably, as we combine all state agencies within those service delivery regions, there will be the opportunity to really slim down, at this level and move more to the regional level. But it will take about a 2-year process to do that.
One other question, Mr. Chairman. On the local assistance grants that we passed last year, I think they were put on hold. Is that correct? Or is that still any possibility that they will be acted upon, or or do our local governments just need to realize they're not going to get them?
Well, that would be pursuant to whatever you all decide you want us to do.
I can help you answer that. Not to spend it.
Not to spend it?
Don't spend it. That's
Okay.
right.
Yeah, so that would be pursuant to y'all's wisdom on that. So.
How about other questions? Anybody? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You appreciate the job.
What are y'all doing to Representative Mills over there?
Well, I'm cutting mine on. Other people are going to cut theirs off. Question about furloughs. I'm sure you've looked at what would it save for a.
Can we hand this out to you? Let's
Please
just kind of look at it, because
the pay grade 15, is that the way you figured it, or was it just across the board?
Sir?
All pay grades.
All pay grades. We took all, but if you look at this really helped me, Mr. Chairman, Representative Mills, to look at what the furlough potential was, and certainly we're open. We got to make this work. I mean, we got to stay true to our mission.
It's not something I like talking about.
We got to weather the storm, but we got to do whatever it takes. There's no option to not make this whole process work. But if you'll see the number of positions there, you'll see that only 16% of our employees are 100% state funded. 19% are partially state funded, and you kind of go through. You can read that. And we kind of came down that, well, really 65% are not supported by state funds because of so many of the, we have the Georgia Housing Finance Authority, then we have the federal dollars, and you're looking at $28,546 per day benefits. So I would tend to weigh that versus if we could strategically look at our functions and, certainly, when you look at furloughing a lot of these federally funded folks, that in itself might affect the economy negatively because then you got people with less money to spend. So I think we need to think all that through, and we're willing to think it through and look at it and do whatever we have to do to make this whole process work. But I thought that would help y'all look at where we are. Every agency's different. I mean, ours is fairly complex in that we deal with a lot of different things and a lot of different federal dollars. I will say this, because we are anticipating on whatever stimulus program comes out. I mean, it changes every day, but what I've looked at, there's probably going to be, we recently got the $150 million. I would say there would be, some other funds that would flow through some of those federal positions that would give us the opportunity to help more Georgians. So, yes.
And Commissioner, thank you. That kind of goes to the heart of what I was trying to communicate a little bit earlier. Maybe I miscommunicated it. That I would appreciate, we don't know as representatives what employees are 100% federally funded.
Yes, sir.
And it just doesn't make a lot of sense to furlough some of those people, in my opinion. Right. But if we're not provided that information, a furlough cut to somebody that's 50% federally funded and 50% state funded is not the same as 100% state funded. And
yes, sir. And that's why we looked at this, Mr. Chairman, because we wanted to be sure that we knew exactly what we were doing when we were looking at those furloughs. So
we appreciate any when we're talking about. I mean, we're trying to come up. We just passed a bill in the House saying we're going to find $428 million for a homeowner tax relief grant. So clearly, we've got to do something here.
Yes,
and so if you'd like to pass along the committee later on some other ideas, we're certainly open to that, as we are to every department.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, we're throwing darts at a dartboard.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I appreciate y'all.
Any other questions? Commissioner, let me ask you, on the furlough down here, where it would save $28,000 a day, is that net exclusive of your benefits, or is that?
Includes benefits.
Includes benefits, yes,
So
sir.
really, you need to figure about 60% of that probably to get your net figure, because the benefits are going to continue even if they're furloughed, right?
That's right. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other
So
questions?
y'all got any idea of how we get about $1 million?
We're going to continue. We'll work any way we can.
Could you have that to us by the
Yes, sir.
Well, do
I wish-
appreciate this.
yes, sir.
This is good information, because your department is such a hybrid of different
sir.
agencies.
It
You
is.
got money coming in from several different things, and as Representative Mills said, it doesn't make a lot of sense if you talk about furloughing someone who's 100% federally paid. I mean, we haven't
right.
helped ourselves here with that.
You put
Probably
more revenue
done
on
more
also.
damage than good. Is anybody else with you that we need to hear from?
Well, we got GFA coming up, and I'm not going to pick at Chris like I normally do, because he's moving over to DNR. They're attached to us, and of course they would come up and speak to their budget. And Chris, would you like for Chris
Yes.
to come up? And
Any other questions?
Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Thank
Yes,
you
sir.
for coming.
I appreciate that. We can do that, sir.
Sewer lines
To fish for fishing trot lines. I don't know which hat I got on today. I think it's a GFA hat, but we'll do this real quick. We've got a little PowerPoint. Might be easier to look at the 09 and 10 together for you real quick, Mr. Chairman. I'll just tell you, I think y'all know GFA. I think you know what we do. We've only got about 47 employees, and of those 47, only 4 are funded through state appropriations. The rest are funded through our revolving loan fund or through the federal funds, which we manage for these revolving loan funds. Our total operating budget at GFA is only about $6 million. $800,000 of that comes from state appropriations. I'm not going to bore you with all the details of the past here, but I do want to tell you some of the things that we've already done to try to reduce our operating expenses. We've renegotiated our lease to save about 40%. We've renegotiated all of our other service contracts to save about 33%. We've rebid our banking contract and services to save about $5,000 a year. We rebid our audit services to save about 25% a year, and our board has implemented policies to expedite repayment of our loans from communities to try to get more money back in right now. Obviously, with the state of the economy, our activity's down a little bit, but communities can't go to the bank and get money. A lot of them that were going to the bank instead of coming to GFA can't do that anymore. And so we're, I think, more critical to some communities. And the good thing, when we're making a loan, people are getting jobs right now, too. So I think there's a double benefit there. But, Mr. Chairman, if you'll just look at page 2 of that PowerPoint, it just real quickly shows you the original 09 budget for GFA from state appropriations, the amended 09. We've, the Bible says the Lord loves a cheerful giver. We're trying to be cheerful about this. We're 90% cut in our state appropriations for 09 and a 51% cut for 2010. We've recommended reducing our sewer grant program, which is helps little rural communities go from septic tanks to sewer systems. We've recommended a cut of $100,000 in 09 and $350,000 in 10. The reason we didn't zero both of those out is we've got quite a few little rural communities that are in the process now. We're trying to help them out by doing that. The other big area, y'all know the governor's really one of the projects that's closest to his heart is land conservation, and Kurt Soper, our director, is here today. We just announced our 100,000th acre of land, but the governor did ask us to suspend all local and federal or state grants for land conservation for 09 to the tune of $10 million. We reduced that by we've left $5 million in there for 2010, and there's a copy of a list of communities that have already applied for some of that money in this packet for you. The Georgia Rural Water Association, which does a lot of good work for rural communities out there, their traditional pass-through budget was $250,000 the last couple of years. Y'all have graciously taken that up to $350,000, and it's hard for them to absorb that cut, but they understand the situation too, and that's why we've reduced that. And then lastly there, the State Energy Utility Program. That's where we manage the state's gas and electric services. We're saving the state around $4 million a year through our gas programs and electricity programs. But we've also streamlined there. We've got a position we'll leave vacant, and we can just do a little less programming there. But we are saving taxpayer dollars with that that money there and the funds that we bring in. Down at the bottom, you'll see our capital projects and the bond proceeds the governor has recommended in the 10 budget to the tune of $45 million that'll all go back out to your communities for loans and a few grants, but mainly loans. On average, we're saving your local taxpayers about $30 million a year by taking the loans out through us. So Representative Mills, we're looking at other ways to cut. You can see there where you can cut, what you can do. We've not looked at furloughs. We've left some of our positions vacant right now. Now, I'll tell you, as we work and what we expect to see through the federal stimulus package, the feds, that's a lot of product to get out. We don't want to have to increase the work. We don't have to hire anybody to help move that money out right now, so we're going to work closely with Mike and DCA and those guys just to double up and move that money out as quick as we can with the staff that we've got in place right now. But I'll be happy to answer any questions, but it's pretty straightforward there. Well, I'm over there I'm there now. We're doing both right now, but I'm Noel will leave when y'all leave here, but we're doing the transition as we speak.
That may not be till October or November.
Noel's smiling a lot more because he's not over here. That might hurt him.
Chris, I've got a comment and a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I think you made a good point, and of course, none of us know right now what the stimulus package is going to be. It's a lot of it's speculation, but a concern I have is when we get it, if it comes down, I think everyone agrees there's going to be a lot of strings attached and regulations and this and that and the other. And what we need to do is make sure that y'all are able to jump on that just time you get it and turn it around in a timely fashion and make sure that you've got the resources you need to get it out of here.
Right.
Do y'all feel pretty good about that? So far, you're probably much more up on that than maybe we are.
We are working, and Greg Mason, our Chief Operating Officer, has been working with DCA, DNR, OPB, everybody. So we're all getting ready to move it out as quick as we can. What we've recently done is sent out a notice for communities to start the process. EPA gave us the signal from Washington, start the process, requesting projects. There are two things I think are important to point out. I've included in here a list of projects that have applied for us for money for reservoirs or water supply. The way the federal money, the way the law is written, is we can't use any of that money for reservoirs or for water supply projects. And so we've been lobbying Congress to try to make sure that they give us that ability to do that. I mean, it just makes it's too easy. It's too much common sense. The other thing is the average federal loan to get out through GFA because of their red tape, 6 to 9 months. And so we said, if you want us to get out in 120 days, you're going to have to change the red tape in Washington. So we're going to be ready. We've got projects, about 150 million projects already identified. I'm sure we'll get another 150 when the call goes out, and it's the projects that are going to be ready to go. We're going to give them lowest interest rate that the feds will allow us to give, move it out as quick as possible. Our board's on notice that they'll be called back in any day to approve new rules and regs and policies for whatever we need to do based upon what it really says. Right now, if we had to put money on it, I'd say we'd get at least $90 to $100 million worth of water and sewer funds. But again, not a penny of that can be used to build new reservoirs in Georgia. And we've got some good projects going through, and I know that we're not going to probably get any more bond dollars to do reservoirs, but I hope that this board or this committee and others will let us talk to you at some point about the studies we've done on your behalf and what we need to be doing so we're prepared when we can do it.
Good. Sure will. Any other questions from anybody up here? Well, Chris, thank you. Appreciate the good job you're doing.
Yes, sir.
And we'll be in touch with you.
Thank you, sir.
This will end our hearing today. Tentatively, we've got another one scheduled for Tuesday, and we'll be working with the other agencies that we didn't have today. So hopefully, we're going to notice out on that for sure. But right now, we think it's going to be Tuesday. So thank you all for coming.
Yes, sir.